The biggest keys to a Rams win over the 49ers, that's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your 1-0 Los Angeles Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and if you really want to support the channel, hit that like button. And let us know, what is your prediction for the Rams and 49ers game this week, and give us some scores. Let us know. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. Sports Illustrated, 24/7 Sports, Dodgers Nation, now the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre, half, and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station. He's in his 8th year covering the team. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. On today's show, we are breaking down the Rams 49ers game Sunday, the big showdown at SoFi. No-Cal versus SoCal. We're going to get into it, key matchups, keys to the game. But first, a little injury news to report, Travis, on this one. Puka Nacua, he missed practice with an oblique injury yesterday. They're going to need him. He was big in his first game, 119 yards, massive for Matthew Stafford. Then Stetson Bennett, they placed him on the non-football illness list. Sean McVay would not disclose what is keeping him out. He said he wanted to keep that in-house. So he missed week 1 with a shoulder injury. He's going to be out. So you got Brett Rippon as your backup quarterback. So Travis, I don't know what happened. I don't know if his great-grandson is sick or his Social Security kicked in. He doesn't need football. But, yeah, they got Brett Rippon as their backup QB.
Yeah, I mean, good. Not good that there's something going on that's preventing him from being away from the team, but I think that good in the sense that I think Brett Rippon is more capable of stepping into an NFL game at this point if, in fact, Matthew Stafford needs a minute to catch his breath or twist his ankle or whatever, whether short-term, long-term, hopefully we never have to find out. But seeing Bennett the way that he was during camp, seeing the way that he looked in those preseason games, him not being here does not really give me a lot of football worry. He was not somebody that I thought was going to step in and do the things that needed to get done, especially in light of the way that they played in week 1, where, this is a season that may be going in a direction that was maybe less likely, right? That we'll talk more about this as we get into it, but you beat the 49ers coming up here on Sunday afternoon, and this season goes from hey, let's just see what happens to maybe we're going to get a high pick to let's see how far we can go. I mean, it can change really quickly. As far as Puka Nacua goes, my goodness, how quickly things change. You went from, hey, let's see what he can do in the absence of Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's down to he tore the place in half on Sunday against the Seahawks to, oh my gosh, what are we going to do without him? I mean, that happened in the span of about a week. And you're right, D-Mac, I agree that they need him, as good as Atwell was. And, I know that Van Jefferson is probably looking to have a better game than he had a week ago. But without Naccua, this is going to be an uphill. It already is an uphill climb, a steeper uphill climb.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully he gives it a go because they're going to need him if they're going to win that game on Sunday. But let's get into our keys, and starting with the first big key for me, and that is they have to find a way to slow down Christian McCaffrey. They have to find a way to neutralize this 49ers run game. We know what Kyle Shanahan likes to do. He's going to try to exploit this young and inexperienced interior of the Rams, and I think that's going to be what we're going to see early on in this game. And the Rams defense, they stood firm against the Seahawks. They held Seattle just 12 yards and 1 first down the second half, 85 yards rushing total. They really cleaned things up, but McCaffrey, he's a different beast. He was a nightmare against Seattle in week 1, 153 yards rushing and 107 yards after contact. So he's tough to get to the ground, but when you get him, if you get him in space, you have to bring him down and stuff him in the backfield if you can.
This has been, McCaffrey specifically last year, and then generally speaking over the last several years, this has been the problem that the Rams have had when they played the 49ers. There's just one guy that seems to absolutely kill them. We've seen it be Brandon Ayuk in previous years. We've certainly seen it be Debo over the last couple of years. We've seen it be George Kittle prior to that. We just one person, just there is no answer for him. I agree with you, D-Mac, that I think Christian McCaffrey is probably the most likely person to be the problem that they're going to have this weekend. I agree. You have to find a way to slow him down. But even if you do now, I mean, how much energy does it take to deal with McCaffrey? Does that leave Debo an opportunity? Does that leave Kittle an opportunity? They are so loaded offensively. They have so many nice skill players on the San Francisco team that even if you're managed to hold one down, to hold them all down, I think is the real challenge.
Absolutely. And we saw, okay, we know this success has really been minimal for the Rams against this 49ers team. Just one win in their last 19 meetups. Of course, they got the one that mattered in the NFC Championship game. But in those 8 regular season losses, you see them pound the rock, especially taking the clock advantage. And there's always that one guy that is able to have that success. But the one time they beat them, they sold out on the run. They stopped the run there in the NFC Championship game. They forced Garoppolo to beat them, and they were able to win advance to the Super Bowl. So the other thing I'm looking at is how will they try to exploit the edges? We saw early in the first half, Byron Young, Michael Hoyt, they struggled to set the edge. Will they expose Hoyt with McCaffrey with those jet sweeps? I mean, that's something that concerns me as well. So you got to stop Christian McCaffrey. It's a tough task, a big challenge for this Rams defense. But the second one is, can you get to Brock Purdy? Because Brock Purdy, if you look at what he does for this team, he doesn't have to do what Matthew Stafford has to do for the Rams, right? He has to go out there, be the point guard. First game, 2 touchdowns, 220 yards, a 113.3 rating, but not the big-time throws that we saw Stafford make. But I think he did have some balls that were 2 turnover-worthy throws, so you got to take advantage when he throws those passes you can possibly turn him over on.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, I think you and I are looking at this the same way. You want Brock Purdy to have to make plays. You want to put some pressure on him. I agree with you, and I think the best way you can do that is to play with a lead. Right. Again, over the course of the last several matchups where the Niners have completely dominated the Rams have played from behind. The Rams have fallen behind early. The Rams have been chasing points virtually from the first quarter every single time. That allows Brock Purdy and that's 49er offense to be multifaceted, to be able to run the ball, to be able to throw short passes, to be able to try to just kind of chip your way down the field. If there's a way to get the lead and hold on to that lead and force Brock Purdy into what you're talking about, force Brock Purdy into must-pass situations, to be on the right side of down and distance, to put them in a lot of 3rd and 7s and 8s and 10s and put pressure on him that way where you just have to worry about a one-way go, I think that's an incredibly important part for them, because if they're chasing points and they just have to go down there and score real quick and then the 49ers can just take their time moving down the field, I've seen that movie before and it sucks. I don't want to see it again, because that's exactly what the Niners do. That's exactly what they're better at than the Rams, where they just grind you up over long drives, short gains, and then boom, they'll hit a long one. Play with a lead. I think you can manage that much better.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Look, call me crazy, but they don't need Purdy to be Joe Montana or Steve Young or anything like that. But he still, to me, is a limited passer. He's not an elite thrower of the football. I think that he's going to give you some opportunities to turn the ball over and get some interceptions. He's not going to be someone who's going to go out there and throw receivers open all game long. But he's got a plethora of weapons. Ayuk is really emerging as a true wide receiver one, a star in the making there. Yeah. And you look at this 49ers offense, they've been consistent. The 49ers have scored 30-plus points in 6 of the 7 games that Purdy has played. And you saw the success that the Rams had against the Seahawks offense last week, especially the receivers. They allowed that touchdown to DK. They held him to 47 yards receiving, and no one had more than 20 yards. So that is going to be key. Can you find a way to make things interesting against Brock Purdy? Get to him, maybe cause a turnover. It's going to be the first time that he'll have to face a Aaron Donald. So Aaron Donald meet Brock Purdy, and that's going to be a very interesting matchup as well.
Look, Aaron Donald's got to have a big day. The Rams can't win this game if Aaron Donald doesn't have a big day, because he's the name brand on the defense, right? He's going to have to be the game wrecker that we talk about over and over again. He's going to have to do it. We saw it this much against the Seattle Seahawks, where he gets frustrated. He gets, he's not getting the way that he wants to get going. And he took that little swipe at Geno Smith. Not a big deal, but we've seen it before. We've seen it a lot against the 49ers. So stay in your shoes, play at that high level, but he's got to have a big day, because if he doesn't, I really don't see how the Rams are going to be able to hold them down enough and then score enough on the other side to do it. He's going to have to get to Purdy a few times for sure.
He has to, and I think he will. And we're going to talk more about Aaron Donald, some key matchups here in our next segment. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, before that, T-Mac, let's talk about game time, right? That if you've ever been the guy that's in charge of your crew, right? You got a bunch of guys, you're going to go to a game, or maybe you're getting something together for your family, and you're responsible for buying the tickets. How much stress is that, right? Buying tickets to your favorite event should not be stressful. That's where the Gametime app comes in, right? The Gametime app is the best way to get tickets for events in your area, whether that's a concert, a game, a theater show, whatever it might be. Flash deals, last minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event. And you get, of course, get to see what that seat's going to look like, image view of all of those seats. Forget planning about it months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price, so you know that you're covered right there. Here's how you do it. You download the Gametime app, you create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, the Gametime app, open up that account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Go put that Gametime app on your phone.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. And a special shout out to our everyday listeners. We appreciate you watching every episode, listening to every episode, and you can be an everyday listener too. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we're going to pick up on these keys, and the next one is they have to find a way. This Rams offensive line has to find a way to neutralize this 49ers pass rush, keep the damage to a minimum. Now, the 49ers, they led all teams in week one with 24 pressures. It's going to be a big test for this offensive line. They had the second highest pass protection grade in week one. Can they build off that success? Now, Seattle, you got some okay talent over there, but it's nothing compared to the front seven of the 49ers. You got Bosa, you got Jackson. I mean, Jackson, 3 sacks against Pittsburgh. You got Armstead, you got Hargrave. These are some of the best in the business, so they have to find a way to minimize this damage, and I think McVay also has to commit to the run to try to slow them down.
Look, this is the great question about week one, right? Were the Rams as good as they looked? Were the Seahawks as bad as they looked? Was it maybe a little bit of both? Or are we going to kind of meet in the middle of these two things? Because you're exactly right that you look at what that San Francisco pass rush is going to be like. If the Rams O-line can look even a little bit like it did against Seattle, they're on to something. They're going to have a really nice season, knocking on my desk right now for good luck with the health index, right? The CQI that we talked about, the coach, the quarterback, and the injured list. If they can stay healthy and stand up to this pass rush, look out. I mean, all of a sudden, we're having a totally different conversation this season. Now, if it looks like we've seen in the past and Matthew Stafford's getting knocked around, I bet you Matthew Stafford's going to look a lot older than he did a week ago, a lot less accurate than he did a week ago, a lot less, just for lack of a better word, bouncy than he was a week ago. And then we're having a very different conversation. So we'll see. But I agree with you. I think that, between the offensive line of the Rams standing up and the secondary of the Rams standing up, I think those are the two big keys for me.
Yeah, that's my next key here is that Stafford, he needs to stay vertical and he needs to really pitch a perfect game. He needs to continue what we saw last week and play like the elite Pro Bowl level Matthew Stafford. Now, here's an interesting fact. Matthew Stafford has never garnered one MVP vote in his entire career.
That's
I
crazy.
think he has a big game. You kind of start to have that conversation. This guy could be an MVP candidate with the success that he had in week one. He was fantastic. He was outstanding in his career against the 49ers. He's 2-7 with the Rams against the 49ers. He's 1-4 all time 15 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, but with the Rams, 7 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. So he can't turn the ball over. I think he's going to need a better run game. The run game was inconsistent there in week one. They weren't efficient, but Stafford was ridiculous. I mean, big plays on third down, the throw to Higbee down the sideline, the out route to Naccua, the 44-yard pass to Tutu Atwell. He's going to need to be in his bag all day long for this team to have a chance to win.
For sure. And the only way he is if he has a little bit of time to do it, right? That this is not going to be a guy that's going to be able to create that extra, second of time where he's going to move his, he'll move his feet up in the pocket. He'll dip that shoulder the way that we see those veteran quarterbacks do it. But I don't know if he's got to be as clean as he was against Seattle, but it's got to be at least in the neighborhood of it, because like all those throws you mentioned, the one I keep thinking about was that out to Naccua, that over the top of one guy, right in front of the other guy, right on the hands of Naccua. I mean, that's one of those oh, right. That's why they went and got him, because there are 3 guys that would even try that throw, much less be able to drop it in there. And it was perfect. but nobody can make that throw from their back. Nobody can make that throw when they're on the run. So if he can stay upright in a little bit of time, for sure, and I agree with you too, D-Mac, he's going to have to, because we know that Cam Akers and Kyron Williams, they look pretty good, but they're not going to run all over this defense. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be on the arm of Matthew Stafford, and maybe not a perfect game, but we're a shutout for sure.
He's got to flirt with one, right, for 3 quarters at least, maybe because of a couple hits at the end, right? So, I mean, I think for Stafford, the big key is, I mean, he was absolutely elite. Look at the PFF grade, over 90, 5 big-time throws. And I think one of the big keys, big X factors, if Tutu Atwell can take the top off this defense and get some breakaway plays, get a deep vertical, something like that, that's how you beat this 49ers defense. Only problem is you don't have enough time to throw, right? I mean, you don't have enough time to let plays develop. So if they can find a connection early, I liked how McVay used Tutu Atwell there in their first game. He had some crossing routes, making some tough contested catches. They had him in motion. But yeah, Stafford has to be elite for them to win this game. Now, the next big key is Shanahan. How is he going to attack this young and inexperienced defense? I think he's going to try to expose them. They're undersized. They're inexperienced. We see how well he can scheme up this defense. We've seen it for years now. And my big question is, will Young and Hoyt set the edge? And 2, this undersized interior line, how will they fare against this dominant run game?
You said it right. That we talked about it, I think, on maybe Monday or Tuesday's show, and the everydayers will certainly remember this, this is about technique as much as it is about athleticism. And with Byron Young in particular, we saw him kind of break his technique a few times and give up that edge, and the ball was able to bounce outside with Fred Walker earlier in the game last week. So if he does that again and it's McCaffrey or it's Debo, forget it, right? You're just dealing with a better level of player on that side of the ball. Your technique has to be sound. The entire defense, technically and schematically, needs to be sound, because if you start freelancing here a little bit, if you start to go off of script a little bit, there are star players on the other side of that ball on this time, and it's not going to be a first down. It's going to be a touchdown. It's not going to be where he got the he picked up a first down. It's going to be a 50-yard chunk play. They're too good to let that edge go. You have to maintain your technique, and when you have a young defense, I think that's the first thing the Niners are going to do, is they're going to test their rules. Let's see whether or not you guys do what you're supposed to do, because if you're not, they're going to kill them. If they stay in their technique, they got a really good chance. But if they start to go off of program, it ain't going to work.
They have to stay sound. I mean, it's jab, 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 and then the knockout punch. That 65-yard run they had, where you had all the yards after contact against the Steelers last week. Another thing I want to point out, too, as far as how the run impacts the game, is one thing that Kyle Shanahan is so good at is trying to bait the cornerbacks to look inside that backfield, to get them to cheat up. It's like the mouse and the cheese and the mouse trap, right? You don't want to see that. Like we saw last week with DK Metcalf and Darion Kendrick, who I think really had a phenomenal game for the most part. But the one play he got beat, kind of cheating up towards the run, and they were able to turn him around. So kind of look for that. These cornerbacks definitely have to have amnesia against this team, because you're not going to win every single battle, but you just have to be sound and just get right back to it. Now, next key, this is to me a little bit of an underrated one, because everyone talks about the pass rush of the 49ers, their front seven, how dumb they are, but I think they have a legitimate chance to get to Brock Purdy in this one. I think you look at this offensive line for the 49ers, there is a weakness, the soft part of the Pop-Tart, right? And last week, Steelers, they have a good pass rush, but 49ers, they give the highest pressure rate of any team in week 1 at 55.9%. First half, the Rams didn't have very much pressure. The Seahawks, they lost their tackles. They really turned it up in the second half. But like you mentioned earlier in the show, you got Aaron Donald, and that to me is going to be a big difference.
He always is. And my only hesitation here, and I hope that this is finally just one of those, we finally, solve the puzzle or crack the code. Every time I hear Aaron Donald's got a great matchup with this guy in San Francisco, Aaron Donald's got a good matchup with that guy in San Francisco, and it's like, okay, well, where is it? Why did it not materialize? And it's because of what you said earlier, D-Mac. Kyle Shanahan knows what he's doing. Kyle Shanahan is the only guy that I think, if you put him head to head with Sean McVay, 100 times, he's gonna hold his own. We've seen Sean McVay go up against other really good coaches, whether it's Andy Reid or Pete Carroll or Bill Belichick, and these guys that are just legends of the NFL, and he trades punches with them. Kyle Shanahan, not so much, right? Shanahan is the one guy that he hasn't quite been able to figure out, and Shanahan has figured him out. So even if Donald gets going, this is why it needs to be all three levels. It needs to be the defensive line. It needs to be Ernest Jones and his linebackers, and certainly on the back end with that secondary, because if there is a soft spot in it, Kyle Shanahan's going to find it.
AD can wreck this game in the interior. Like I said, the right side of the 49ers defense, left side for the Rams with Spencer Burford. He's someone that they can attack. And also Trent Williams, he left the game against the Steelers, their left tackle. Colton McKivitz, he had definitely had a rough first game where he gave up those 3 sacks to TJ Watt. So I think for me, that is where you need to exploit. Get to Brock Purdy, make him force some throws, possibly cause a turnover too. Then next big key, they need to have more success running the football. I mean, the Rams, they rammed the football 40 times against the Seahawks. That was the most rushing attempts of any team in the NFL. They only netted 92 yards. That ranked 18th, and their 2.3 yards per carry ranked 30th in week 1. So you need to have a better game from Cam Akers. He's got to be more efficient. He's got to hit those holes and play with some better vision. I think Kyron Williams is someone who has an opportunity to continue to get more snaps with good play.
Yeah, I think you're going to see more Williams than you do Akers. I feel like this is the Cam Akers story that we've seen year after year after year, where somebody kind of comes in with one plan and then all of a sudden it's something very different. I agree with you. They're going to have to run the ball for no other reason to keep guys like Bosa and Armstead honest, right? To just not let those guys pin their ears back and come after Matthew Stafford for all the reasons that we talked about. I don't know, maybe a little bit of a screen game. Maybe they do a little bit of that jet sweep stuff that they've tried to do before. But I know Sean McVay. I've seen him. I've watched every game he's coached since he's been the head coach of the Rams. Dude likes to throw the ball. It's like he can't. It's his nature. It's his instinct. It's what he does. Right. He's the guy that I throw the ball, even if it might not be the thing that it's called for in that moment. He wants to do it. I hope that the game plan includes a lot of rushing. I just wonder, especially, and this comes back to the first point I made at the beginning. You got to, if they have the lead, you can run the ball. If you don't have the lead, it's very hard to stay committed to the ground game. That's what we've heard him say, season after season. Well, we fell behind. We kind of had to put us in some unfavorable situations, by throwing the ball. Let's run the ball. Let's see what happens. But if you fall behind by 10 points, you just can't.
Yeah, and that's why I'm hoping that we've learned from these years of ineptitude against this team. I mean, it feels like drinking a flat soda every time we play the 49ers, right? And you definitely don't want to have that. So I'm hoping that this time around we do see some different packages. Like I said early in the year, 12 personnel, 21 personnel. With Cooper Kupp out, I think there is an opportunity for them to zig when other teams are zagging at the moment. So definitely think game plan wise, you need that run. It's going to help Stafford. It's going to help this team as a whole. Keep that 49ers offense off the field as well. But coming up in our final segment here on Locked On Rams, Travis, we're looking at some of these key matchups, and we'll throw out some predictions, how the Rams could win this game, why they might lose. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, this Locked On Rams podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. So let me ask you this, because I know that this certainly happens to me. Do you ever find that as you're trying to fall asleep, you're getting ready to go to bed, and you're just about to get there, and then your brain just will not stop telling you things, not stop talking to you, and your thoughts just start racing around and around before you're trying to fall asleep or any other thing you're trying to get done, right? Turns out that a great way to make those racing thoughts calm down, maybe go away, is to talk them through. And therapy gives you a place to do that, so you can get out of your negative thought cycles and that, well, what if thing, and find some mental and emotional peace. BetterHelp can help you with all of that. Get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. If you've been thinking about giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great way to do it. That's BetterHelp.com/lockedon for 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. So have you gotten a chance to check out Prize Picks yet? Because it is the most fun that I've had playing daily fantasy in a very long time. You can win up to 25% of your money this football season, 25 times your money, I should say. You just select 2 or more players, you pick more or less on their projected stats, and boom, you put it in there, and now you're having a great time, right? It's that easy. It's kind of, do you go more? Do you go less? Saquon Barkley, more or less than 60 yards. Patrick Mahomes, more or less than 2 passing touchdowns. That easy. At Prize Picks, you can win up to 25 times your money this season. You go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. You've sat on your couch. You said, I knew that guy wasn't going to throw 2 touchdown passes. Well, let's see you do it, right? prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl. Use that code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. What are you waiting for? Go get it done.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Now, Travis, here in our final segment, how can the Rams beat the San Francisco 49ers? And we talked about it earlier. I think you do try to sell out and stop the run. You put the game in Purdy's hands. Can you clog those short, middle, those quick passes and see if he can beat you over the top? And I think that's, to me, the number one way you can beat this 49ers team.
Look, it's going to be challenging, but I'm going to make a case, Doug, very quickly on how you win this game, because this and the number one thing, and this is when you're on the wrong side of like the line, you can tell yourself this. When you're on the right side of the line, you probably don't want to hear this very often. This is the NFL. The very best team and the very worst team, the talent gap's about like this, right? It's really, really small. Anybody can beat anybody. That's number one. So get a lead. Find a way to do it. And I agree, putting pressure on Purdy is important. Keeping Matthew Stafford upright is equally important. You're going to have to catch a break. You're going to have to get a turnover. You're going to have to, get a special teams play, whether it's a big one on your end or whether you stop them on their end. You're going to need something. When one team has Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and Nick Bosa. I always get the Bosas confused. Nick Bosa, Nick Niners. That's how you remember that, D-Mac. They've got all of these great players there. You're going to need a break. You're going to need, a call, a weird bounce. That happens all the time in the NFL. The Rams certainly showed that they have the ability to do it against Seattle. Much, much tougher test against the 49ers. It's going to be a challenge, but I think they can do it.
I think they absolutely can do it. I think that, like I predicted in the offseason, they were going to win this game. That was, of course, when I thought they had Cooper Kupp and were completely at full strength, and you can't discount that. But really, it just comes down to, do they win their matchups? You got Kendrick versus Brandon Ayuk. That's going to be a tough challenge. Can Ernest Jones make plays in space against CMC and stop the run? Can Aaron Donald dominate Aaron Banks? Absolutely. I'll take my Aaron over your Aaron every day of the week. Steve Avila versus Javon Hargrave. Avila was outstanding in his rookie debut. Does he continue that? Alec Jackson versus Nick Bosa. So I think you look at some key matchups along both sides of the ball. How do they fare in those? And even if they do lose those, how close is it, right? And I think that's the big key. But I think what I'm looking at, too, is, look, this game is going to go as the offensive line goes. If Matthew Stafford has time, he's going to carve up this Niners defense. I'm confident in that, especially when you saw how good, how healthy, how re-energized he looked last week. At some point, Travis, the law of averages has to tip in our favor in the regular season. Watching the Rams versus the 49ers in the regular season, it feels like you're the feeling of a sneeze coming for 4 hours, and then that sneeze just goes away, right? I'm just waiting to sneeze and win and finally beat the 49ers in the regular season. Can I just have one of these dubs?
I hope so. I hope so, because, look, you know what? If they win, if they can beat because everybody that watches football, everybody that knows anything about this agrees the 49ers are really good. The 49ers might be the best team in football, especially if their quarterback can kind of elevate his game. And maybe he doesn't even need to, and they still might be the best team in football. Beat this team, be 2-0, be 2-0 in the NFC West, getting ready to go to Monday Night Football in Week 3 against a Cincinnati team that feels, maybe a little bit more vulnerable than we might have thought of at the beginning of the season. You got a chance not just to get to Week 6 at 3-3, which has been my goal the whole season long, but now all of a sudden you got a chance to do some real things. The questions are very different if you walk out of SoFi with a win on Sunday afternoon. All of the things that we've talked about need to go their way. I agree. It's offensive line first. It's Matthew Stafford's health second. Puka Nacua is oblique, probably third. You got to get pressure on Brock Purdy, but you got to play with that lead. They can do it, but it's an uphill climb.
They need some breaks, like you said. I think Purdy could be the game where, hey, he comes down to earth just a little bit. And I think this Rams team is ready for this task. I think they're up for this challenge. I think you saw what we did in Week 1, all the success. I think that's going to carry over to an extent. I would not be shocked at all, of course, if the 49ers win this game 31-20, something like that. They pull away towards the end where 2-3 quarters the Rams hang tough, but then that running game starts to really take its toll on this Rams defense and they pull away. But you know what? I got to stick with my prediction. I'm going Rams 27, 49ers 24. They win this game somehow, some way. Then we're having a conversation of, do the Rams make some additions? Are they buyers? I mean, it would change the entire conversation about the direction of this year.
It changes everything. If they win, forget it. If they lose 27-24, to use your same score, and the 49ers kick a 50-something yard field goal at the end and they win the game, you're like, let's go. We got a really good team to be able to do that. if it goes the way that a lot of these Rams 49ers have gone, we're right back to where we were before the Seahawks game, which is what is this team? Is it hope to get lucky against the bad teams and look really good and maybe steal one against one of the slightly better than average teams and you're looking at 7, 8, 9 wins? Or is it, hey, that Seattle game actually was a really big problem. We're going to have a lot of answers. The week one overreactions, underreactions, we're going to feel a lot better about where we were on that come Sunday.
Yeah, just like when Steve Young got that monkey off his back in the Super Bowl against the Chargers, the Rams have to do the same thing with this 49ers team. At some point, they have to win one of these games. Like I said, key, stop the run, sell on the run, make Purdy throw to outside the numbers, make Purdy try to beat you. Big games from Tutu, big games from Puka Nacua. Matthew Stafford shows that he's an MVP candidate after this one. Like I said, I need more than one MVP vote for Matthew Stafford this year, but give me Rams over the 49ers. I don't care if it's going to be 60% 49ers fans. Have them all walking out sad like they did at the NFC Championship game. But
that was
Rams
fun.
Going to win this one, I'm telling you.
That was fun. That was fun.
Good times, man. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ on X at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house is Locked On Rams' house?